the on-air light. There it is. That's the on-air light. I do believe, Jarrod, we are live.
We're live?
I think so. I think we did it.
Oh, well, something's just happened on the YouTube page.
Oh, yep. I see it now. All right. Sorry, I just had to. I have the video that you all are seeing up on the other screen here, and so I was just hearing everything that I just said at an echo. So that's muted. I think I'm good to go.
There we go.
Yes, the show will start soon. Howdy, Rotor. How are you? Good to see you. Hi, Jennifer. The gang is all here.
I love
this is
the
delightful.
Name. Calorific. That's a good name.
That is a good name. And apparently it's snowy everywhere. Wow. You know, this
Australia.
True. This is very exciting for me because I have never done a live stream or anything like this because I am terrified when it comes to appearing live in front of people. So, hey, Jarrod, you want to take over for me? I'm scared.
Hi, I'm Jarrod from MuppetMindset.com. That's JD from MuppetHub.com. This is a live thing we're doing. I've done a couple with Tough Pigs. This is the first one young JD's done. This is actually the first time, well, not the first time, but the first broadcast time we've had a conversation face-to-face. Usually it's audio, and usually it's over Skype, and I can't actually see your little puberty beard when we talk. You
know, Jarrod, I've noticed, as funny as you can be, you really only have one joke when it comes to me.
Absolutely. It's just
you just got the one thing, and that's the beard.
I like your shirt.
Oh, the shirt. Yeah, thank you.
I have my Stranger Things Sesame Street shirt.
Oh, delightful.
Thank you.
We all came prepared.
This is from England.
This is from New York when I went to see this. When I went to see it at the Museum of the Moving Image, so it's got Museum of the Moving Image on the back. And this here is the Muppet Hub studio where we do, where at least I do my end of the recording. None of the other guys record in here except Steve Swanson was in here with me for the Christmas special that we did. So, are you ready, Jarrod, to answer some questions live on air in front of millions of 12 people watching
all
now?
12 people. I'm looking at the old mate Clayton's wearing a Big Bird shirt he made using one of his Inktober drawings. Nick Kramer likes your poster.
Oh, lovely. And we're already starting to get questions.
All right. So, well, do you want to take a live one or do you want to take a prepared one?
I'm going to start with some of the prepared questions to give some of the people in our live audience time to think up some of their live questions. So I'll take some of the ones that have been sent in. After all, they asked first, so I guess they get dibs or something like that. So this one comes, this is for both of us, Jarrod. This one comes from Twitter, from @MrTrentYT. He asks, what would be the perfect Muppet series to you guys? And you know what, since I asked this one, I'm going to go ahead and, got my note cards here, I'm going to go ahead and pair that with another question that was also sent to us over Twitter from Marnie Hill. She writes, when or if the rumored Muppet Show comes into fruition, the one rumored for the streaming platform, right, for the new Disney streaming service, what would you like to see come out of it? So basically, what kind of a Muppet Show would we like to see? What would we hope for a Muppet program for its production, reception, etc.? Jarrod, would you like to start with this one?
I would like to start. I'm just going to quickly move this so you can't see you in my glasses. I actually wrote an article not long ago. It was probably when the new series was announced. I say announced, it's not official, but when the first rumors went about, I wrote something saying, should the new Muppet Show be the Muppet Show? And instead of thinking, like, I really don't know that they should just literally make what they were making back in the 70s. I think an updated version would, like a talk show, because you can still have your celebrity guests, you can have your sketches, but it's a lot more current, and they could probably even parody the fact that there's 100,000 of them. So personally, I don't think it should just do the Muppet Show, but I guess we'll see. You, young man, who's looking very
yeah,
you're concentrating.
You could see me there.
Yeah, they couldn't see me.
But that's the thing, is they can't see. I was trying to find a way to get the little box at the bottom of the screen for them, because I didn't notice that they don't have the little box that shows what the other person is doing while the other is speaking. Can that be turned on? Is that possible?
I have no idea.
You take a look around while I'm taking that question.
Sorry,
So,
I'm just going to quickly answer a couple of questions. One question that Nick
Mhm.
Kramer asked. You mean like Kermit hosting Tonight Show? Not necessarily the Tonight Show, but almost a parody of talk shows. So none of the sort of, I don't love Jimmy Fallon at the best of times, but none of that sort of thing. More like almost like a Conan type thing. What's really bizarre, is that I have the YouTube page open. As I went Conan type thing, I was actually quoting there as well. It was quite bizarre. Anyway, so not that sort of thing, not quite a Tonight Show type thing, more parody of that, if that makes sense. He said, so I guess that made sense.
okay, so, and I just lost my visibility of the live questions. I will figure this out, folks. So we did a test run and everything to make sure it would go smoothly, but in Muppet fashion,
We did.
some
I'm
things
just
have to go haywire.
Well, you try to figure that out. Sorry.
No, I think I'm good. I'm all good. I'm all good.
Calorific, which literally is my favorite name ever, said up late with Miss Piggy without the behind the scenes stuff.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. Like, it sounds like you're describing the Muppet Show that the Muppets just tried a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
How is this different?
It's because I think we didn't see enough of Up Late with Miss Piggy to quite compare my idea with what they're saying. Clayton, or I guess we'll call him CW in public, said Jim Henson supposedly once said that there should be another Muppet Show. Should there be another Muppet Show, he wouldn't want Kermit to be the host again. Should that be honoured, or should we instead consider something that would consider what would be successful? I think Muppets Tonight showed that you need Kermit as the host.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. What I'm interested in seeing is something that just, well, I'm a film guy, and if you look at some of the stuff I've got around me, you might be able to tell I'm very often into pretty crazy films that are just fantastic. I like stuff that's out there, like Little Shop or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
I like it to be weird, and so I like it when the Muppets start telling these stories in a way that's a bit more artistic and in a way that references different kinds of literature. And so for me, I may have said this before, but I would really enjoy to see something like what the Muppets did in certain episodes of the Muppet Show, like the Liza Minnelli episode, where the whole thing is a sort of a film noir murder mystery kind of thing, or Brooke Shields, where it's all Alice in Wonderland. Like, I would love to see a series that's sort of an anthology series kind of thing. That could be, you know, the Muppets doing just various different kinds of stories in a Muppety way, or possibly original stories that are just working within genres that you already know.
Because if you look at already established literature, is there really enough out in the sort of, what's the word, public domain that's going to make for enough episodes for a series? Or are you only going to have, say, like 6 or 7, and then that's all they ever do?
Right. Well, that's a very good point. But remember, at least in the United States, because there are certain laws protecting parody, if the Muppets played their cards right, they could do a Muppet Show that's parodying Harry Potter, a Muppet parody of Star Trek. In fact, I would like to see the Muppets do a parody of something like Black Mirror, you know, something that's very new, very fresh, pretty serious and dark in many respects. Like, I want to hand that to the Muppets and see how they spoof that. I mean, imagine, you know, I can easily imagine either Disney's Muppets or the Sesame Street Muppets having fun parodying something like Bandersnatch. Like, that just is begging for the Muppets to find some crazy way to parody it, to ruin it. That's what the Muppets are good at. They're good at taking things that are perfectly fine and ruining them, but in a satisfying way. Not like not like Mary Poppins Returns. I mean, in a way that's really satisfying. That's what I like about Muppet comedy. That's what I'd kind of like to see the Muppets do.
Okay, well, that's a fair enough point. Would you like to take another question from prepared or from live?
Let's hear a prepared question from you, Jarrod, and then we will take another question or two from
I've forgotten. Oh, no, this was Mo Monster who asked this. What's your favorite part of making the podcast, and how many times does JD have to bleep me out? If you haven't listened to the Christmas special, you're missing out, because the amount of work that went into that, especially from you and Steve, was crazy. But you listen to that, and that's 45 minutes that I'm proud to be a part of. So I think also the collaboration part, I think, is my favorite part of it, because yourself, me, and Steve all quite often disagree with what we're going to do. But I think between the three of us, we sort of collaborate and come up with something quite nice. As for this bleeping out, not so much back in the olden days when I started coming on the podcast, but more so now. A lot of these swears are planned, or at least I tell you I'm going to swear before I do it.
That's true. I do know most of the time what the plan is. Sometimes I suggest it, other times we try it, and if it isn't working, we redo it. There's a whole lot of planning that goes into each episode. Sometimes very deliberate scripting. Other times we say something that's completely improvised, and then we back it up and go, okay, maybe that bit didn't work, maybe that joke went a step or two too far, we correct as needed.
Yeah, that's part of the benefit of being able to edit things, which we don't have that safety net right now, which I know you're a little concerned about, but that's okay.
I mean, on the podcast, you have to understand, every time Jarrod starts saying horrible things about Ryan Dozier, I'm able to edit it out, but now I don't have a plan.
No, but I do that to him in person, so
that's true. So I think we do have that.
10 days, and I would just yell out swear words and horrible things to him at 3 a.m.
All right, let's see. So another question from here. Yeah, there's this great question here. What do you two think of Frank Oz and his hot takes on Twitter? That's a good question. Man, I like it, but I can't decide if I like it in a sincere way or if I think it's just kind of cute. Like, there's something about Frank Oz thinking that he's the one who's discovered that this is how Twitter works. Like, he's kind of walking into Twitter, not getting that by saying these things, doing whatever political commentary he wants on Trump. He's kind of doing stuff that everybody else is doing. Everyone else is going to be saying the same things, and it's going to be treated in a certain way. It's going to get some amount of eye rolling. But darn it, I like it from Frank because, I mean, he's Frank. Like, whenever Frank speaks his mind sincerely, it's a wonderful thing. I love hearing everything that Frank Oz has to say. I love actually getting into the mind of Frank Oz, because you always wonder, is he holding himself back about certain things? At least I do. Like, I consider him to be a pretty blunt guy when he wants to be. Mm-hmm. But there are certain times when you think he's trying to be very, very careful not to upset anyone.
I think Frank, I can't remember who it was. I think Tough Pigs might have said that Frank is like everyone's favorite grumpy uncle.
Yes. Thank you.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So he's like, you love him anyway, even if you don't agree with everything he says. I agree in that I think sometimes he's trying to hold back. I, was lucky to talk to him for 45 minutes last year, and we talked about, the state of the Muppets and how he feels about it. And I don't know that he held back. I think he felt, though, with me, he can be a little more... I think with Twitter, he feels he has to be a little more broad with how he talks about it, because he's got a lot of fans who follow him who are fans of his direction work rather than his directing work, rather than his puppetry work, which is how we sort of know him. So I think if you go back and look at that conversation he and I had, he talks about, what he thinks the problems are, where he thinks, some of the characters have been a little flanderized and things like that. I like his Twitter. I do. I think, again, because I just like the Frank Oz is around, because for so long he wasn't. And we had no idea where he was. We had no idea what he was thinking. Now,
turns out he was hiding in a dark room editing the same documentary for years. That's where he was the whole time.
That's true.
And it was one secrecy. It's amazing. Like, from what I've heard, but he was totally blindsided by it. Like, all the high-ranking people in pretty much everywhere in any of the Muppet-owning companies, they were just, oh, this is a thing that exists. Okay, they found out around the same time when we did, from what I hear. Like, Frank kept it quiet. I am impressed. And so now that he's not having to be quiet about this stuff anymore, I'm glad that he's just talking about everything he wants all the time. It's great. I love Frank.
I just want to clarify something quickly. The same person who asked the question about Frank's Hot Takes, the Whatnot 21, has said, but why does Frank Oz hate the Muppets? He doesn't hate the Muppets. He has a much different relationship to the Muppets than we do. He has a lot more nostalgia for them. He has a lot more invested in them. So I think that's why he just wants to see the best of them. And I don't think he's seeing that at the moment, which I can't really blame him for.
Well, actually, Jarrod, I think you're missing the point. Clearly, Frank Oz has demonstrated that he doesn't love the Muppets anymore, as we all saw in the Good Morning America interview, in which they actually got him to do the voice. I think that's it. I think
that must be it.
That's
I just
the sign
need to
that this is
clarify
the
that
end.
you're being sarcastic, because there are people who won't think you are.
That's one of the fun things that I like about doing our podcast is like with how much it's edited. I think people understand that it's a carefully crafted show and pretty much everything you hear is there on purpose. And so when we say stupid things, we're saying it because it's funny to say those stupid things. And so I'm able to assume that people are in on the joke with our podcast. Like it's a niche. It's a niche.
I've run a Muppet site long enough to know that there are still people who will always take you seriously.
Right. Yeah. So I'll clarify here, since we're live, since I don't know who's watching. Frank still loves the Muppets. He just, as Jarrod said, has a different kind of love for the Muppets because he has a very different relationship to those characters than we can really imagine, I think. So there's a lovely question here. Have you guys bought and or rented Happytime Murders and seen the outtakes, deleted scenes, and commentary from Brian Henson and Bill Beretta? It's a great question because I'd love to say yes, we have, because we want to have all the perspective possible. Jared's shaking his head.
I have not.
No,
I just haven't got around to buying it. I will at some point.
Right. Yeah, like I just kind of forgot that it came out on DVD already.
It also came out on DVD very quickly after it came out.
Exactly.
Movies, which is never a good sign.
Well, I think that, look, the Jim Henson Company has a history of getting a lot of their money back on films once it goes to home video. Going all the way back to The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. The original theatrical run, probably not going to do very well in the United States, but the home video, that's how it's going to make at least some amount of money. And 20 years from now, who knows how much money that's going to be? Who knows if you've got a cult classic you can work with? So I think the Jim Henson Company, once they put this in theaters, may have thought, this might have been better direct to video, and so they took it to video as directly as they possibly could after the theatrical release. Maybe. I don't know.
Do you think, though, if they'd done direct to video, they wouldn't have had the same... Like, I can't imagine Melissa McCarthy would have been chomping at the bit to be in a direct-to-DVD Jim Henson Company thing. Do you think they would have... How do you think they would have done it differently had it gone straight to DVD? Or straight to
I don't know. I mean, if I'm being really honest with myself, I'm not sure that it makes sense for them to do this direct-to-video because, to a large extent, the whole point of this, the way that this production packs its punch, is that you can go into a movie theater and see on the big screen puppets swearing, puppets doing all these things that puppets should not do. When that's just a little direct-to-video thing, when it's smaller, it doesn't have the same effect. I mean, so much of the way that the Happytime Murders was, at the very least, marketed, if not also produced, was to have that shock value. It was about packing a punch. You can't do that as easily when you don't have the big screen. So I take back what I said before. Moving on, next question. This one comes from Twitter from Swine Trek Capped. Hey, that's Chris Harris. Hi, Chris. What is the definitive all-time best Muppet song, original or cover? After answering, please explain why the other person's choice is completely wrong. He knows us so well.
He does.
He really does. All right. This is such a challenging question. I don't know. There's a part of me that wants to give a really sarcastic answer, like that's what's in our hearts. Just, you don't even remember it. You're giving me a funny face like you don't remember.
I have no idea what that is.
Well, there you go. So that joke wouldn't have worked.
I'm sure I'll remember it when you tell me what it is.
It's from Letters to Santa. They're like singing it in the taxi cab before Whoopi Goldberg cuts them off.
I actually watched that a couple of weeks ago, and I still didn't know that was that song.
And that's my point. The best. I have a lot of weird little obscure Muppet songs that I really, really enjoy. I very frequently play different people different ways, or at least I feel like it's frequent on the podcast. When I do play music on the podcast, that's sort of one of my go-to tracks. The music just keeps on rolling along as one of my go-to tracks. But in terms of just the best written Muppet piece, I'm actually inclined to go with The First Time It Happens, because I've had this conversation a little bit with people before about how that is Joe Raposo not thinking of himself as a Sesame Street songwriter, but this is the Joe Raposo who wrote for Frank Sinatra. And yes, for those of you who didn't know that, Joe was friends with Frank Sinatra, wrote songs for Sinatra albums.
I didn't know that.
He knew, yeah. I think the album Old Blue Eyes is Back, the Sinatra album, Frank initially wanted it to be all Joe Raposo compositions for the whole album. The label wouldn't let him, so I think there are about 4 Joe Raposo songs on there. But
I've got that record like over there somewhere. I'm gonna have to look at it afterwards.
look
Anyway,
at it. Look at the back. It's interesting. But yeah, so Joe had a reputation in certain circles for being a really great songwriter who could do different styles, who could do a real proper standard. The First Time It Happens is destined to be that standard. I think I had this conversation with Brian J. Jones once about how neither of us understood how B and Green. Well, we understood how B and Green took off and how that became a standard. It's a brilliant song, but we didn't get how the people who appreciated B and Green as such a brilliant song didn't also see how The First Time It Happens was, I mean, a brilliant, brilliant song that every jazz artist, every show tunes artist, they should all be recording it. It's a lovely, lovely piece. I think it's beautiful. I want to do a cover of it someday, and I don't have musical talent. Thank heavens that we did finally get that beautiful jazz cover by Seth MacFarlane, I think it was, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So look, I'm not going to tell you wrong with that. Sorry, Chris Harris, because The First Time It Happens is one of those songs, like I don't have that on record, I don't have that streaming, I don't have that song anywhere. So actually pretty much all, besides maybe Happiness Hotel, pretty much all, and Hey Movie, besides those 2 songs, I couldn't sing for you a line of Stepping Out with a Star. I couldn't sing you a line of The First Time It Happens. Because I don't have those songs readily available on my phone or on my record player over there or anything like that. Those songs don't sort of have the... I only hear those songs when I watch the movie, and I haven't watched the movie in probably a good 2 years. So I won't disagree with you because I don't know the song well enough to disagree with you. I'll tell you one of my favorite Muppet songs at the moment, and I have a funny little story about it. Remember when the Muppets, Electric Mayhem sang at Outside Lands?
Yes.
Now, the other day when you and I did our test run, I told you how much I enjoyed their San Francisco cover. It's not that song. It's Home, which they sing directly after that.
Huh.
Now, I've got a download of all those songs that they did live on my phone. I also have it on CD, and I have it in my car. Now, maybe about 18 months ago, I went out with some friends. I had a couple drinks, maybe a couple too many, so I couldn't drive. So a friend of mine said, well, I'll drive you home. And so he got in my car and he drove. And I put on the CD player and immediately Home came on. Now, if you haven't listened to it for a while or you've never seen it, basically Janice starts singing the song, you know, Alabama, Arkansas, and the whole crowd, there's like probably 20,000 people start singing along. And it's this really wonderful, loving moment. And I, extremely drunk, started crying. Because of just how beautiful and lovely it was. I'm like, they're just so talented, and they're just such nice guys. And David Rodman's such a lovely dude when I met him, and all that sort of stuff. And it was pathetic. But I really enjoy that cover.
That's delightful.
Yes.
That is...
Now, I haven't looked at our live things for a while. How's that going?
We're getting a few questions. A lot of it's people saying some of their favorite Muppet songs, like Being Green, Rainbow Connection, and It's in Every One of Us. Great track that doesn't get enough attention, definitely. I've never completely understood that one. Like, it's in every one of us to be wise. We can all know everything without ever knowing why. I've never totally gotten the lyrics there. They're a little weird, but I like them. I like it. Like it was for I mean, the John Denver and the Muppets album, their Christmas album. That was what? Excuse you?
Sorry. Might be my least favorite Muppet production ever.
Wait. Are you talking about the special, the album? There's a big difference between the special and the album.
Okay, no, true. The special.
Okay, I hate the special.
Okay, all right.
Just so we're clear, I can't watch the special. It's too trippy. I can't make any sense of it. Can't make heads or tails. But the album, I grew up with the album. That was like the one non-Sesame Muppet thing that I grew up with. Mm-hmm. So very special to me, very personal to me. I've got it on vinyl. And so pretty much all the songs on that album are, I'd say, the Muppet songs that I listen to casually more than any others. I'm not one of those people who has Muppet music on when they're in the car just for fun. I never listen to Muppet music on car rides. Steve Swanson does that.
I do.
Sometimes. Yeah, like occasionally he'll have a Muppet Central radio on when we're in the car together. But it's not my kind of thing. I normally listen to pop music, to non-Muppet things until Christmas time comes around. Then I'm listening to tons of Muppet stuff because that's when they are great. So,
sorry,
I think someone
for a moment. Yeah. Sorry, it's just Hilsey4077. Marnie? I have no idea if that's you. I assume it is. Is it just me, or can the Muppets be a good gateway to good music? So many songs and artists I wouldn't know if not for the Muppet Show and everything else. Two of my favorite songs of all time I have learnt because Muppets covered them. One is Six String Orchestra, which Scooter did in the Star Wars episode. And I mentioned it before, San Francisco, which Electric Mayhem did in Outside Lands. So that's by the Mowglis, and then you've got Harry Chapin, who did Six String Orchestra. Both two of my favorite songs in the world.
Yeah, I feel like I learned a lot about 70s music from the Muppet Show. That was, I mean, that might be part of how I got into Elton John, and he's one of my favorite artists. I was obsessed with Crocodile Rock for the longest time as a kid.
Sorry, completely unrelated. Do you want to hear my family's Elton John story?
Yes.
So when Elton John was a young boy, he went and played football, but his parents couldn't take him to go play football. So his bus driver would take him, and he would sit in the bus and wait for him to finish. And then little Elton John, whatever his name was before he was Elton John, would then get back on the bus, and the bus driver would take him home. And that bus driver was my grandfather. And one time, little baby Elton went, "Oh, Mr. Fairclough, I'm not feeling very well." And he vomited all over my grandfather. So that's my family's Elton John story.
I appreciate that. That is a good Elton John story. I don't have an Elton John story.
Wow.
But hey, on the upside, now all of us Muppet fans have Lisa Loeb stories. So there's that. True. I didn't see that coming a year ago. If you'd asked me if that was going to happen,
no,
wouldn't have believed that. We got some more questions here that were sent in ahead of time. Are you guys ever going to do a defense of modern Sesame Street? Anthony Thompson asks. I don't know. I mean,
I like modern Sesame Street.
Yeah, I don't really have too many big problems with.
I also don't watch it much, though.
Right, that's the thing, is that I'm not in the mood to watch it. It's not something that I'm personally attached to. I'm not as attached to the newer characters as I am to the ones that I grew up with, which I think is normal.
Most of my Sesame Street viewing is through their YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And then when they do primetime specials, I get press copies of that. That's about it.
Yeah, I watch a lot of the YouTube stuff. A lot of their parody stuff is really good. Certainly, if you go back a couple of years to the Cookies Crumbly Pictures, some of my favorite Sesame Street moments come from Cookies Crumbly Pictures, right? Like, for a while, I think I had it as one of the ringtones on my phone, that stupid bit with Cookie Monster and the pita bread.
Yeah.
Like, just, what do you think, Pita? How should I know? I'm just a piece of bread. One of the stupidest lines in Sesame Street history, and one of the most satisfying moments in the whole series. I love it. But yeah, I think because we do some amount of parody on our show that's in response to some newer Sesame Street stuff, like, you know, on the podcast at MuppetHub.com, sometimes we are doing jokes about Elmo and Big Bird and stuff like that. With Drunk Elmo, that didn't come from anything we noticed in any performance.
No.
Elmo's. That just came from
a funny idea.
From a funny idea. Just me driving in the car doing voices, noticing I could do Elmo, noticing it would be funnier if there was a drunk Elmo, which is a very fragile bit to do. You can easily see that going wrong and just being crude, stupid, not at all funny if not handled correctly. You can see that going wrong on something like Family Guy or something like that.
Right.
So we had to do it carefully with a lot of knowledge about the character. Nick says he didn't find it funny at all. Well, I know that, Nick. You don't find anything we do funny. No, I already know that.
Yeah, I do have to wonder why you keep listening, Nick, if you don't enjoy it. Anyway, let's not get into that conversation right
now. Sorry. Anyway.
Can I see you do Drunk Elmo? I've never seen your face as you do Drunk Elmo. Yeah, this is going to be good. Then I'll do Grover.
You know, I don't really have to do my face all that differently from what I usually do.
That's so much more.
Naturally, like,
do you do that? Because, like I said, when we record this, we're not looking at each other. Do you do all these movements as you're actually Drunk Elmo?
A little bit. Little bit. Very little. It depends.
When my character at least got drunk in the Christmas special, I was sitting here, literally where I'm sitting now, with my microphone here, talking like this. And I was just going like this a little bit. Yep. And then I started crying about Home by Electric Mayhem. No.
Right, so I think at some point I did mention to Steve when he was in the room with me for the Christmas show that certain voices were easier to do when I was doing certain hand motions or certain gestures and things like that. But by and large, I don't know. I guess with Hi Big Bird, I still do move around a little bit.
All right, do Hi Big Bird. Do Hi Big Bird.
Hi Big Bird's not one of my best voices, though.
Muppets.
I have to be able to hear it, though. I got to take this off so I can hear my own voice. Well, hi, everybody. I'm so happy to see you all. I'm streaming here on YouTube. What a coincidence. I'm floating in a stream right now. It's a very stupid bit. I can't remember exactly how that one happened, other than we had talked before about how we think sometimes Matt Vogel's voice for Big Bird comes across as a bit tired or loopy. That's not always the case. Like, I've seen some good...
I don't think a disparaging comment. Like, he's an extremely good Big Bird.
Yes, in many respects, he is an extremely good Big Bird. It's just a different Big Bird than the one that we're used to.
Right.
Which, I mean, even when Carol Spinney over the past 10 years has performed Big Bird, it has been a quieter, more tired Big Bird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been softened.
Considering the man's 84.
But also because you've got Elmo there, right? You've got Elmo as this huge force of energy on the show. He's the little kid who's got all the energy and who everyone's watching. And so for Big Bird to represent the older 6- and 7-year-olds in the audience, he's got to be a little bit toned down. And it's nice to have a character who's a little bit more I don't know. I don't want to say intellectual, but Big Bird does seem like he's got a good head on his shoulders. And so that's fair. But every now and again, Steve and I do think Big Bird sounds kind of high. And so we thought, hey, once we've found out that Matt Vogel was officially Big Bird, why not go ahead and introduce our own high version of Big Bird?
Yeah.
Because because we wanted something to complement Drunk Elmo. We thought that would be fun.
And then now we've also discussed doing other things that I'm not going to mention on the off chance we ever do them. But we thought, are we going a little bit too far? Are we now just repeating the joke almost?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine line. A lot of the comedy that we do, I think, on the podcast is a very fine line because, I mean, on the one hand, we're doing parody of things and people that we really respect and really like. So we got to make sure we're not ever being too mean. On the one hand, we're doing stuff that's kind of adult, kind of dirty. I think that what we do on the podcast very much represents I shouldn't say dirty, I should say naughty. Like a lot of times people say that the Muppet Show back in its day, for its time, was a little bit naughty. When you watched the Muppet Show, you felt like you were watching something a little bit naughty as a kid. And I don't think our show is for kids. I think that, the Muppet Cast was the more standard, straight-laced, broad, open to everyone, family-friendly, Muppet podcast, so that if you so much as liked the Muppets, you could tune into an episode, you would be totally up to speed. It would be fun for the whole family. And then I said, let's try to rework this animal. Everybody kind of gets that model for the Muppet podcast now because he set the standard for Muppet podcasts. Clearly, he set a high bar. So I said, let's make a show about a guy who can't meet that high bar, who's never going to be able to do a show that's for everyone. I kind of play something of a loser on the show who has a podcast that hates him. Muppet Fans Talking is the story of a guy whose podcast is just always out to get him, always out to ruin everything for him.
And I mean, I think this live cast shows that, like, you and I get along quite well, and this is how we are in our messages to each other. But then, as soon as you press record on that podcast, I just get to be as mean as I can, and a lot of that is Steve completely egging me on.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Like I see it. I sometimes see it as sort of like the Chuck Jones hunting trilogy in Looney Tunes, the Duck Rabbit thing, where it's like, I'm the Daffy Duck going into this with a plan. I know everything should be fine. Everything should go my way. It's my show. And then in comes Steve as this clever little trickster munching on his carrot. And he knows how to wind everybody up, use clever wordplay so that Jared's Elmer shoots me in the face every time. The best example might be with
quiet.
The Happytime Murders. Thank you. The Happytime Murders episode, when we're trying to prove to Steve that the Happytime Murders is actually going to come out, we did that joke that he doesn't believe that it existed up until the movie was finally released. He kept thinking it would be canceled or something. We do a fun bit there where I'm trying to prove to him that it does exist, and he knows all the ways to defend these stupid, nonsensical arguments in a way that kind of works, like with really careful, clever wording.
And that just shows how planning goes into it, because he planned a lot of what he said in that thing in advance. But also, he's very quick, because we would throw things at him, and immediately he would come up with a quick line. I should also say, talking about us being a little naughty and me swearing and things like that. We do generally, if it's going to be a lot, I know once or twice we've actually put warnings at the start of an episode.
Yeah, once or twice. Yeah. Because we had one show that we just did not censor.
Which was the Happytime one. We didn't bother censoring it. Because what was the point?
There's no way. Like, if you're listening to the episode in which we review the Happytime Murders with spoilers in it and everything, you probably saw the Happytime Murders, if you care. So you should be ready for what's...
Okay, sorry. I'm going to very quickly just come to our defense, and I'm not going to make this a thing, and this is the only thing I'll say about it. Nick, he goes, I just listened to it because the Better Muppet cast is no longer on. Mate, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Okay, hold on. Let's back this up here. I think I've got a question here that was from Nick earlier.
All right, well, let's let Nick have his say.
Yeah. This is, I think, mostly for me. Nick says, I noticed that you've been complaining about Henson Alternative trying too hard to be funny. Don't you think this podcast is trying too hard as well? Some Muppet Central people think so, and I don't think the humor feels Muppet-like as well. Jared, you're getting a good giggle out of that one.
I haven't gone on Muppet Central in a good couple of years. I have no interest. I like myself, and I don't want to hate myself.
No, but here's the thing. So first of all, I checked. I went looking through Muppet Central. They don't mention me. Muppet Central doesn't know who I am, or at least they don't have anything negative to say about me. And yeah, that's amazing. I was shocked. Like, Muppet Central has something negative to say about everything. So I'm not sure where that information came from. There's, the most controversial thing, of course, in this question is, I noticed that you've been complaining about Henson Alternative trying too hard to be funny. For the record, I just want to state, Muppet Hub has never claimed that Henson Alternative is trying to be funny. We don't know what they're trying to do. That's the point. I just don't know. I just don't know. But yeah, for those of you who don't know my relationship with Nick, I don't know my relationship with Nick, but basically, much like Statler and Waldorf, he comments on every single episode of our podcast saying he's going to stop listening because he can't stand it, he doesn't find it funny, and it's not enough like the Muppet Cast, which was admittedly a far more innocent show than ours. You keep saying you're going to stop listening, and yet you keep coming back, and you keep being disappointed. Like, I just don't know what to do for you here, pal. Like, we at a certain point, we deliberately made the show worse for you to help you understand that it's not your kind of show, so you don't have to listen. Jared's laughing because he remembers when we were getting the comments saying, stop making fun of the Dark Crystal. And so as soon as we read that, we wrote in slams.
We did a whole bit on slamming it. Anyway, let's not.
But
anyway,
I don't want to spend.
So let me just quickly say, Nick, I probably went a little too hard on you before. I apologize. I understand if it's not your type of humor. Just, we don't need to hear it every single podcast.
Yes.
Should we continue on with something else? I think I had a live question I liked.
Go for it. Go ahead.
The Whatnot 21. Do you think we'll ever see Rizzo again? Let's delicately answer that question.
Is there a delicate answer to that question? I think it's possible.
It's possible. I don't know who I can see doing him.
Right. That's the thing. Like, give it 10 years until someone who is now the 12-year-old kid that Steve Whitmire imagined would take over Kermit one day actually grows up to be a puppeteer working for the Muppets and happens to have the right voice to do Rizzo.
Right. I don't want Rizzo to just come back for the sake of coming back. It needs, because he was so much with Steve that he needs to have that same sort of thing. I think, though, we'll start to see a lot of, and this is speculation, I don't know for sure, I think we'll see a lot of Pepe Gonzo combinations in place of where Rizzo would have once gone. But yeah, I don't want to see Rizzo come back for the sake of coming back, because he needs to have that character that Steve gave to him.
Yeah, and that's not something that can be easily replicated by another performer. I mean, but taking over another character is always difficult. I don't like it when the takeover of a character is forced fast. Right. Like, if there's someone who's right for the part, we can bring Rizzo back. It's not like a Kermit situation where someone needed to be Kermit right away.
Exactly right.
Muppet Productions can function without Rizzo. I love it when he's there. He's a great character, but I think we should wait until the right person comes along, and then we can try bringing the character back.
Well, speaking of coming back, someone's asked me, is Kermit coming back to Sesame Street? Well, no, is the answer to that question. But I would assume...
Okay, that was a definitive answer.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine Disney's going to, give it back. But I know I don't know anything. Again, it's all speculation. I would assume he will come back to do something for the Sesame's 50th. In some capacity, whether it's a quick guest appearance, whether or not it's hosting something, I have no idea. But I assume we will see him back in some way with those characters, because especially nowadays, like you look at the Carnegie Hall show from a few years ago, and then they did something very similar last year in New Zealand. They seem quite willing to bring, Henson Company characters, Disney Muppet characters and Sesame characters all back in together. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we will see them all together in some way again, but I don't think Kermit's ever going to do another, Muppet Newsflash or anything like that.
Did we already answer the question from Jennifer G on Twitter?
Maybe.
Who do you think is more of a ladies' man, Rizzo or Pepe? Since we were just talking about Rizzo,
I saw that question. I didn't write it down for some reason. Good question.
Just because I didn't know how to answer it. Like, I was hesitant about writing it down because it's like that's a hard question.
I'm gonna leave this to the comment section.
Yeah, that's a good plan. I will say that you can write Rizzo without making him a ladies' man in every single scene.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Pepe, there's some article on Tough Pigs doing a review of, I want to say it was like the Lady Gaga Holiday Muppet Special dumpster fire thing. Thank you. That was appropriate. Yes. In which they say casually, and here Pepe reminds us that sex is a thing that he likes. And yeah, to a large extent, that's kind of how Pepe works. With Rizzo, I feel like he also has food. I mean, I guess Pepe also has money. It's hard because both of these characters clearly revolve around a small number of traits. But at the end of the day, I think Pepe's, he's a little selfish. He's a little shellfish.
He's a little shellfish. Everyone's saying Pepe. I agree, Pepe.
Yeah, I'll give him that. Yeah, although remember he did say in that one episode of the 2015 Muppet series, gender is fluid, so he may also be a man's man as well as a ladies' man. So
And good on him. He loves some Josh Groban.
yeah, all right. So let's see. From Twitter at Daryl Dudd 1776. Hi, good to see you, Daryl. Are all of the people on your podcast real? Sometimes I wonder if you're making up guests just for the sake of a gag.
Well, I don't know why Daryl would think that.
Yeah, I don't. Look, whenever you hear someone on our podcast, it's very real. We have a lot of people like Thomas and Ethan who happen to sound like me, who sincerely enjoy the work that we do, and I'm really proud of that. I think that's really great.
But also, like, okay, yes, we talked about him earlier. Hi, Big Bird, Drunk Elmo. They're characters that you do, but we have the real Grover.
That's true. We do, in fact, have.
Grover come in.
Yeah, that's.
Hello, everybody. See?
Whoa! What? Where did he come from?
He's gone now.
Oh
no,
man!
Sorry,
I do that. No, what?
No.
Oh no, he's gone.
He's gone. Sorry.
Man.
And scene.
All right.
Well, speaking of characters,
yes.
Speaking of characters, I didn't write down who asked these questions. I'm terrible. Why haven't you launched an investigative series on the whereabouts of Frog Fan 76?
Thank you. I don't know. Because at the end of the day, I don't know what's going to come of it. Like earlier today, oddly enough, I did shoot a message his way, just saying, "Hi, just checking in on you. Are you okay?" I don't expect to get a response back. I wish I knew what was up there, but I know when we were in frequent talks with Frog Fan 76, as I was for a while in an earlier period in this podcast, he was sort of one of our regulars. He was a delight. Like he never broke character, I should point out, ever in any of our conversations. That I think was almost vital to making it work, which meant that this was good experience for me. It was good preparation for me to do a live show like this, because this guy would just say things that, first of all, demonstrated that he knew everything we'd ever done. Like he would always come in super prepared with just the complete knowledge of the history of my podcast, the history of the Muppet Cast, anything we talked about recently. Like at one point I got kind of paranoid because he knew the color of the recorder I was playing in our, like somehow he found a picture of it, which I don't remember sharing around.
This is how into character Frog Fan 76 is. I don't even know who's behind Frog Fan 76.
Like that's it. Whenever I wanted to talk to him to say, "Hey, do you want to be on the podcast?" I always had to talk to the puppet.
Yeah,
always. It's scary. Like,
and good on him for the commitment.
I'm impressed, but I can also understand how after a while you might need to take a break from that. So I don't blame him. Although I've heard rumors that he is now hosting a game show in Singapore. Weird, right?
I really wish that was true.
Wouldn't it be great?
That would be amazing. All right, we got any live questions?
We do. Are we doing the March Madness tournament this year? We haven't decided yet. I'll leave it at. Yeah, Jarrod's not involved necessarily. Steve and I have talked about it. We haven't decided yet. That's all I'll say for now. So there is hope. There's hope. We have some ideas up our sleeve. That's all I can say. From Twitter, at Armrod Serling, good username, writes, "How much of the average episode of Muppet Fans Talking is scripted? Who writes the scripts? How did you guys decide what your characters on the show would be like?" You know, some of it, so much of it comes organically, right?
At the start, especially, a lot of the, like me, I don't even remember how my character hating your character thing came about. I think I was just in a grumpy mood one day. But a lot of it came organically at the start, sort of like and then I remember you saying to us, right, well, this is how I want it to go forward. This is how I want the characters to sort of interact. As for how much is scripted in an average episode, like obviously you go look at the Christmas.
Yeah, the last Christmas show that we just did. Everything.
And everything besides when you and I are on the podcast for like about 2 minutes.
I blocked that off to be unscripted.
Yeah, but even
that was the plan.
that was still planned, but even that was like we knew how that scene was going to end. We knew that it would end with Steve walking in, and we sort of got to a point where it's like, all right, that's a natural stopping point and a natural point for Steve to come in. So, but the average episode has little sketches, I guess, has, you know, whether it be Elmo Wars, whether it be a Daryl Dud thing, whether it be, you know, the Happytime Murders when we did the Newsflash with Kermit and Grover. The real Grover. Hello.
The show before the Happytime Murders was a real mess because, like, some of it was scripted, some of it was improvised. For some of it, we had a general plan. Yes, you are.
I don't remember.
We just talked about it. You're Elmer Fudd in that one. Not literally. You're not playing Elmer Fudd, but that's sort of the role that you have there because it's the argument one, the debate one. There it was. Yeah, there it was a mess because some was scripted, but I didn't have time to script the whole thing because I was busy that week. I do most of the writing, I think, for most shows. For the Christmas specials, Steve wrote the first draft, and then I reworked it and moved some things around and added some new material and finalized the thing.
Steve wrote pretty much the whole me, Elmo, Grover scene.
Pretty much, yeah. That's like that whole huge chunks of what Steve wrote remain intact in the Christmas show. But that was more writing than he usually does. Normally, he does a lot of the directing. We don't have like clearly defined roles, but very often when we're doing a bit, he's the one who can be the audience and figure out what's going to be funny to the listeners. And say, no, don't read it that way. Read it this way.
And between the three of us, we quite often will give each other sort of line readings. We're like, no, try it this way, try it that way. You know, a lot of the time it's literally a case of use this word instead of that word.
Yeah.
Like, so that it flows better. Like, there was a lot of that during the Christmas special.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tricky thing to do because it's always finding the right balance because we got to have some authenticity. We need to feel free to really speak our minds. But at the same time, we like a lot of what we do to be structured. Like, to a large extent, I've been influenced in my style by some of the stuff you see, I guess, over at Channel Awesome with, like, you know, some of Doug Walker's stuff, how he's doing commentary and criticism, but he's able to build a narrative around that is tied to the criticism that he's trying to make. So I've very often done a pretty similar thing where we work some amount of narrative and character into what we're doing. But at the heart of it, we're talking about the news. We're talking about the latest Muppet happenings. We're talking about
and quite often I
movies,
don't know what we're going to be talking about until literally 10 minutes before we start recording. You'll shoot me a Google Doc that'll have the rundown. I'll be like, oh, great. And there's been more than once where I'm reading a script out that you've written. I'm literally reading it live.
Right, yeah. I haven't done
my research, or you send it quite late, or a lot of the time, to your defense, a lot of the time I just haven't done my research or done my rehearsal.
A lot of times I do have a hard time getting the scripts done because I always underestimate how much writing is going to go into an episode because sometimes it takes a lot to get it right. I'm always envious.
Sorry, go on.
What? I'm just always envious of those shows where it's much simpler, where just two guys sit
and talk.
That's it. Like, to a large extent, that's what the podcast was supposed to be.
Well,
but then we have these funny ideas, and then it's like we have to do that. We can't
talk about rehearsal. Again, I'm going to reference the Christmas special. Because I'm Bert, and I'm Grover in that. Am I anyone else? I'm Michael Caine. That Scrooge, wasn't Scrooge, except that wasn't decided until we're actually recording.
Yeah.
I was meant to be Cookie Monster originally, but then you took that away from me.
But you took Scrooge from me, so now
I took Scrooge from you, so fair enough. I sat there the night before we recorded with my iPad and the Google Doc open, and I literally went through the thing going, "Oh, hello there," and did the whole thing like I was actually reading it out and my own lines and rehearsing and stuff like that. It must have sounded bonkers to anyone who could, like my neighbors who might have been able to hear me, because there's just me all of a sudden going, "Oh, hello, Mr. Hooper." Oh, hi, Mr. Hooper.
So much of what we do would seem absolutely crazy to anybody else. It's ridiculous. You're in the Mo Show Productions. I think that's Mo Monster there. He says, you're inspired by Doug Walker stuff. I like you guys much better than Doug Walker. Well, on the one hand, that's a slam to Doug Walker, but who cares? It's a compliment to me, so I'll take it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Who's Doug Walker?
the Nostalgia Critic.
Okay, yep.
I don't watch a lot of his stuff as much anymore. I mean, especially after the whole change the channel thing went down, which has me pretty skeptical of that whole organization. But I won't get into all that stuff. All that I can say is I always like the idea of using a podcast to combine different formats, because only on a podcast can you do a sketch comedy show, a news commentary show, a movie review show, and something with a story, sometimes a story that goes on across several episodes, all merged together into one format that sounds halfway cohesive and coherent and planned. Like that would not work as a movie.
No.
On the big screen, everyone would be lost. But as a podcast, somehow you just kind of go with it. And we found a style and a rhythm that kind of works, and I'm pretty happy about that.
That's it. Now, we're going to need to wrap this thing up sooner rather than later. We have been going 55 minutes. And anything you want to talk about before we finish up? There's one thing I want to talk about.
Okay, what's that?
Very quickly, I call it the cult of Zoot.
Oh, yes. Okay. Jarrod, please talk about the cult of Zoot.
There seems to be, at the moment, a big outpouring of love for Zoot and for Lips. And I don't get why. Because they're such non-characters.
Careful.
Well, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with what I've just said. My hypothesis is that because these characters have no real defined characteristics, if that makes sense. I understand that we know a little bit about them, but not a lot. I think then that gives these people the chance to project sort of whatever they want on these characters.
Okay. Interesting theory. And you guys in the comments, please feel free to respond too. It looks really weird when I do this, like my hand is getting enormous. Sorry. I'm not high. My brain just goes to those weird places all the time. I just in the interest of full disclosure. Anyway, where was I? Pardon the ADD. Yeah, I think that argument wouldn't really work, though, if you applied it to someone like Jen from the Dark Crystal, where very few people relate to that character. That's a pretty blank slate.
But is there a big outpouring of love for Jen from the Dark Crystal?
That's what I'm saying, is you don't really have that. Like, here's someone who everyone could easily be projecting themselves onto, and yet the love isn't there.
Only ever done the Dark Crystal, whereas Zoot and Lips, you've got like decades worth of material.
Right. Also, since we're on the topic of the Dark Crystal, I just want to remind everybody that I actually don't hate that movie. I really don't hate it. I kind of like it in a way. It's just that I understand all the ways in which it failed and all the ways in which it succeeded, and I understand that for someone like Steve, who's really, really big on narrative and character, there are some problems in those specific categories that make I think most people in the Muppet fan community have stated pretty explicitly that they find the movie kind of boring and slow. For me, that's just funny comedic material that I enjoy using from time to time. I'll concede we've done Dark Crystal jokes a bit too much lately, but I don't know. Steve and I have kind of been thinking it might be fun to do like a little Riff Tracks commentary track that you could sync up to the Dark Crystal to get all of our Dark Crystal jokes out of the way at once.
And then you never have to say them again.
And then everybody who likes the Dark Crystal, who also likes what we do, our view count just went down by one person. That's the guy who likes the Dark Crystal. He just left. Sorry, man. I mean, I like it too, but I think it would be fun just to get all the jokes out of the way, and then everybody who likes the Dark Crystal but also likes what we do can listen to us without a guilty conscience because we don't have to talk about it again. I mean, it's obviously artistically brilliant on so many levels. I do want to clarify that. But speaking of Steve, I think I just spoke with Steve. This comes from Twitter at King of 888888888. Whatever happened to the Muppet Cast the Musical? Now, there's a good question. So the Muppet Cast the Musical, I think Steve announced it publicly once. It was going to be the final episode of the Muppet Cast, and it was going to be like a sort of normal episode of the Muppet Cast, but as a musical. And we started writing musical numbers for it. This was actually our second time at doing a musical, by the way, our second try. At first, we were going to do, a year or two ago, a Halloween musical, which we set up at the beginning of the podcast as, you're all familiar with the tapes that we discovered containing the audio from the never-produced Muppet production, Kermit, Prince of Denmark. Well, it turns out we now have all the demo tapes from another never-produced Muppet production, the Muppets Halloween Special. and we're going to play those tapes for you now. And then, of course, it was all just songs and stuff that we had done as a joke, just sort of a little nod to Muppet Prince of Denmark for those who get it, and those who also know that the Muppets have tried and failed to produce Halloween specials over and over and over again. They've got like, what, 5 different failed Halloween specials they've had to produce. So we ended up with one of our own when, for whatever reason, we couldn't get the story to work, even though we had some good music there to work with. And so then after that, some months later, Steve comes to me and says, "Hey, JD, I've got an idea. We're going to do a musical." And I'm like, "We just tried that." And he said, "Did we? I forgot about that." Anyway, this is going to be the Muppet Cast, the musical. And it's going to be an episode of the Muppet Cast, but as a musical. And so then we started writing these fun songs for it. We did parody songs. We took the Hello song from Book of Mormon, right? Mm-hmm. At the beginning of Book of Mormon, that Hello song, we did that with us trying to connect on Skype, trying to, like, just saying, "Hello, hello, can you hear me? I still can't hear your voice." But then Steve found a way to write all the things we normally say to each other to the exact melody. Book of Mormon. I was very impressed. And then we had some other ideas, like I think it was going to do a song based on Everything's All Right from Jesus Christ Superstar, in which I tell Steve that Sesame Street's all right, and call him out for always acting like anything that's new on Sesame Street and not what he remembers is bad. So that was going to be fun, and then I wrote some other original numbers based on some of our running gags. But eventually it just became too much work. Steve ran out of time, I ran out of time, and we couldn't do it. So that's a shame, but it would have been fun. And really the point here is that it's all Steve's fault.
Well, speaking of Steve and things being his fault, going to live things, Anthony Thompson, right, how was it decided that Steve Swanson would only play Hardhead Harry and himself in the Christmas special? I mean, this is a long story, but basically, I'll tell the very abridged version of it.
Go for it.
It was meant to be the 3 of us, and then script script changes and drafts and new drafts, everything like that. And then Steve was working, so he was away. So for a long time, it was going to be you, myself, and young CW writer doing it. And
yeah, we should clarify that what happened was we wanted to record with Steve, but at a certain point, his schedule got completely filled up, and we couldn't do it. And so we thought, what's a way that we can still do the Christmas special without Steve Swanson? So we came up with a fun running gag. That was going to be, we would have an announcer, like a Monty Python style announcer, come in and say, "We regret to inform you that Steve Swanson has been sacked." Like, Steve would send in just a few pre-recorded lines whenever he could that we would edit in at the beginning to make it sound like he was recording with us, even though he wasn't. And then very early on, Steve's out. And so, you know, "Tonight the role of Steve Swanson will be performed by C.W. Rhoda." And then Clayton would be playing Steve for a while. And then at a certain point, at a certain point, he would get sacked, and then my mother would step in and be playing Steve for a while, and then she would go because I got embarrassed and shooed her out of the room. And then for a while, Daryl Dudd would be playing Steve, and then Thomas and Ethan would both be playing Steve together. So we kept changing it up and had this great running gag to cover up for the fact that he couldn't do it with us. But then for whatever reason, there were scheduling problems there, and that didn't work out. And then the schedule that Steve had on his business trips changed, and one of his business trips was going to be to where I live. And so we just decided to record it all here, and I had to quickly rewrite the script, pull a ton of stuff out. And so Steve ended up just with that one character. But, I mean, Steve has said many times that voices aren't really his thing. They're our thing.
I'd say, originally Steve, to show us how it was going to work, when he was writing the first draft, recorded the first probably 2 scenes by himself.
Yes, he's trying to do everyone's voices.
And I'm hoping we can release that on some podcast somewhere, because it's genuinely brilliant, because he can't do any voices at all, but he's given it his all. It's very funny.
And he can do the speech patterns. Like, he gets how I talk, he gets how Jarrod talks, he gets how Grover talks, and so he can't do the voices, but you still know who everyone is, and it's the most delightful thing. He puts so much work into that. Like, Steve doesn't get enough credit for all the work he puts into what we do. We're running out of time, so I'm going to wrap this up. Some final questions here from @RezalIvedGib65. Jarrod, Mary, Buff, Kill. Miss Piggy, Miss Mousy, Raleigh Cruson. Go.
I'm going to marry Raleigh Cruson.
Good plan.
I'm gonna.
This is where I knew it gets you.
This is gonna get edited to make me look weird.
That's the whole point. That's why I
The B
wrote it.
one. Wait, sorry. Marry, boff, kill. The B word. I'm not gonna say it. Is Miss Mousy because I want to kill Miss Piggy. I don't want to kill Miss Piggy. That sounds horrible. But I don't want to.
And that's the part that we edit out and we send everywhere. We just send that one clip of I want to kill Miss Piggy to Frank Oz.
It's fine.
And then he blocks you on Twitter. All right. Are there any more good?
No, nothing real live. People have been talking about the Dark Crystal. Yes, you should watch it. People were talking about why they think this, Zoot lips things goes on. People, Zoot's the only Jewish Muppet, so I guess we have some representation. Lips is my favorite Muppet purely for his character design. So fair enough. I feel people project themselves onto any character no matter what. No matter if they feel blank slates or not. Yeah, fair enough. You've all got good points. So I haven't really wanted to write an article about it, I should say, because, there's so many different theories and so many different reasons that I don't know these people. And so I don't want to, it feels like I'm judging them if I was to say anything. I'm not judging them. Love whoever you want. I just don't understand it.
All right, and here's my last question from Twitter. At Best of the Muppet Show writes, "Hi, I'm Brian Henson. This episode of The Muppet Show starring Liza Minnelli is from the 5th season of the series, and by that time, they were getting real experimental with the format. This episode is a full-fledged murder mystery. Jarrod, for 200 points, what was the opening number for this episode of The Muppet Show?"
The Muppet Show theme song.
That answer...
Technically, I'm correct.
Really, really sneaky, but darn it, I'm going to give it to you. Jarrod, you got those points. All right. Answer. The Muppet Classics comic book series began in 2009 with Muppet Robin Hood and concluded with this 4-parter in 2010. Jarrod?
4 seasons?
The correct answer was Muppet Sherlock Holmes, but you've still got a chance to get it right. You've still got a chance to win this one. Answer. March of 2019 marks the 5-year anniversary of the release of this Muppet movie. Jarrod?
5th anniversary of a Muppet release from 2014. I give up.
Muppets Most Wanted.
Muppets Most Wanted.
Yes! 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 We have a winner, Jarrod!
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, and I can't think of any better way to end it than that. Jarrod, you won!
I win! I win!
Yeah, you win.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the live thing. I win. I don't like Skittles. Oh, sour Skittles. What kind of person are you? Yeah, right, I'll take that.
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
Now, can I just very quickly, before we wrap this thing up?
Yes.
I don't think I've actually ever released this publicly. I've done this on my personal pages and stuff. Do you guys know I have a Muppet tattoo?
Ooh, I forgot about that.
I mean, you knew I had it. I sent you a picture.
Yeah,
I got it. I had Kermit's eye as a tattoo. It's actually the Muppet Wiki logo, but anyway.
It is.
It is. But yeah, I got that about 3 months ago. So there you go. I don't think I ever publicly released that.
I actually just found some art that I did when I was in like my 9th grade art class in high school, where I took the Kermit eyeball and did
nice
kind of spaceship. I've seen it done before. I know other Muppet artists have done that joke and done it better, but I didn't know that at the time when I made it, so I just found it and so I might just pick that up somewhere. It's kind of fun. All right.
Well, I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for everyone joining us. And
yes, thank you guys for joining. This was a blast. I was so scared of
you really were
of doing this online, but you know what? I'm having fun. This was great. Jarrod, you want to go for another 2 hours?
No, I don't. Not at all. I haven't got any more questions.
I haven't got anything else either. So in that case, thank you both for listening. This has been brought to you by MuppetHub.com and the Muppet Mindset at MuppetMindset.com. And we were both very happy to do this. This has been a lot of fun. Let us know if you'd like us to do it again. But in the meantime, you can keep listening to the podcast that we do at MuppetHub.com. It's Muppet Fans Talking. It is in iTunes in the Muppet Hub podcasts feed. You go over there and you can hear that. For those of you who didn't know, I actually did a podcast with Steve in which he and I were guests on All About the Mouse. If you're familiar with the All About the Mouse podcast by Brian Ripper, you should go listen to that. We talked about the Muppet Christmas Carol back in December. It was a lot of fun. Not sure we got the chance to mention it on the show, but we had a good time there. So if you're looking for more Muppet podcast content, that is there. That is a thing that exists. And, well, Jarrod and I already have some ideas for some new fun shows to do in 2019. We've got a lot to talk about now. We've got to find some halfway intelligent way to spoof the bit about Grover swearing. Is there any way to do an intelligent comedy sketch about something as ridiculous as people? I mean, I don't know. It presents us with a real challenge. How do we do it in a way that's really funny and not just as stupid as the controversy we're trying to make fun of?
I mean, all I'm going to say is that I do my Grover voice, and I do swear a lot. Let's leave it with that.
Yep. And I think that's all you need to know. So keep listening at MuppetHub.com and in iTunes in the Muppet Hub podcasts feed. And we look forward to seeing you later. That Jarrod's face.
Yeah.